So kids, here's the story of Joshua and the Battle of Jericho from the Bible. The story is a miraculous account from the Bible about the Israelites' conquest of the city of Jericho. After the death of Moses, Joshua led the Israelites across the Jordan River into the Promised Land, but the city of Jericho stood as an obstacle. Now, when Joshua was near Jericho, he looked up and saw a man standing in front of him with a drawn sword in his hand. Joshua went up to him and asked, "Are you for us or for our enemies?" "Neither," he replied, "but as commander of the army of the Lord, I have now come." Then Joshua fell face down to the ground in reverence and asked him, "What message does my Lord have for his servant?" The commander of the Lord's army replied, "Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy." And Joshua did so. Now the gates of Jericho were securely barred because of the Israelites. The city of Jericho was heavily fortified, with its gates securely shut so that no one can enter or leave. Then the Lord said to Joshua, "See, I have delivered Jericho into your hands, along with its king and its fighting men." The Lord commanded Joshua to have the Israelites march around the city of Jericho once a day for 6 days, with 7 priests blowing trumpets made of ram's horns ahead of the Ark of the Covenant. On the 7th day, they are to march around the city 7 times. After the 7th lap, the priests are to sound a long blast on the trumpets, and the whole army is to shout loudly. God promised that the city's walls will collapse, allowing the Israelites to take the city. So Joshua son of Nun called the priests and said to them, "Take up the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord and have 7 priests carry trumpets in front of it." And he ordered the army, "Advance, march around the city, with an armed guard going ahead of the Ark of the Lord." When Joshua had spoken to the people, the 7 priests carrying the 7 trumpets before the Lord went forward, blowing their trumpets, and the Ark of the Lord's covenant followed them. The armed guard marched ahead of the priests, who blew the trumpets, and the rear guard followed the Ark. But Joshua had commanded the army, "Do not give a war cry, do not raise your voices, do not say a word until the day I tell you to shout. Then shout." So he had the Ark of the Lord carried around the city, circling it once. Then the army returned to camp and spent the night there. Joshua got up early the next morning, and the priests took up the Ark of the Lord. The 7 priests carrying the 7 trumpets went forward, marching before the Ark of the Lord and blowing the trumpets. The armed men went ahead of them, and the rear guard followed the Ark of the Lord, while the trumpets kept sounding. So on the 2nd day they marched around the city once and returned to the camp. They did this for 6 days. On the 7th day they marched around the city 7 times. At Joshua's command, the priests blew their trumpets, the army shouted, and Jericho's walls collapsed, allowing the Israelites to capture the city. They destroyed everything in it, dedicating it to the Lord, but spared Rahab and her family for hiding Israelite spies. The Israelites burned the city and placed its valuable metals in the Lord's treasury. They also integrated Rahab's family into their community. This story underscores the importance of obedience to God's commands and his power in granting victories.